to a podcast of rare antiquities. My name is Harry, and I'll be one of your hosts for this podcast.
My name is Geoff. I'm the other host.
So this episode will be like a prologue, or kind of like an episode 0. We will just tell you what this podcast will be mainly about, and we'll introduce ourselves a little bit, and then we'll dive into what we want to talk about today. So, essentially this podcast, so Geoff, we kind of had a chat about this whole thing to begin with, and we're a little unsure on what to do, but we also want to differentiate ourselves from other people out there, and I've always liked obscure cult movies. Thinking what we agreed on was we just do some obscure movie reviews, things that we've enjoyed in the past, or even things we've never seen but we've heard about. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. We don't need to keep watching the same old things. I think it's fun to take a different view of some movies that are lesser known, and more fun to dig into that.
Oh yeah, for sure. But we'll still eventually do like maybe some big event movie reviews as they come across our plate, just like with everybody else. But I think we'll still mainly be on the more obscure side of movies, whether how far back we go, or you're going into the 70s or the 60s. I'm more of an 80s kid, so I can pick a bunch of obscure movies from that era as well as the 90s. I'm not sure what you think about that, Geoff, but
let's go all the way back. How about some silent films? Why box it in?
Well, yeah, exactly. Why box ourselves in? Let's just do anything. Yeah, that'll be great.
Nobody's listening, right? So
yeah, we'll be lucky if actually one person actually chimes in.
Yeah.
Then I know I've made it.
Yeah, exactly. One person, we've made it.
It doesn't count our family, right?
No, well, I'm sure they're definitely not going to be listening.
I don't know. My wife said she might be interested in hearing this. She's actually kind of amused, which is surprising me because she hates every single movie that I like, and I don't think she'll be interested in any of the obscure movies that we do pick.
We'll see how she enjoys our language, and then we'll see.
Well, I think she's heard us bitch and moan about a lot of things just when we go out, so she's pretty used to that, yeah. Anyways.
Well, then why wouldn't you want to listen to a recording of the same thing?
Yeah, good point. So I thought we'd just get into kind of, again, we may change the format of how we're going to do some of the reviews, but it'd be good to have a focus when we do start having movie reviews. Like, we'll have a certain structure, so we'll probably start with a mini plot summary, something quick and dirty and high level. And then we'll break it up into acts, so we can do like an Act 1, an Act 2, an Act 3, and then we can close out with our final thoughts. And we'll address everything from like the story to, from writing, directing, acting, special effects, music, cinematography, any aspect that tickles our fancy in a sense. And I guess with these obscure movies, it'll be more or less, is this movie a piece of shit? Is it a piece of junk? Does it work? Does it still stand up till today? What's really that gem or rare antiquity that we could recommend to people to really watch or to really avoid?
Yeah, absolutely, man. That sounds like a lot of fun, and I'm sure there's lots of great movies we can really sink our teeth into, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, I know, and maybe we'll bring on some guests in the future. We'll see how this works and go from there. So we'll just move on. Maybe I was thinking we can just talk a little bit about ourselves. Do you want to go first? Introduce yourself and your background, what your interests are, and why the hell you want to even do this in the first place.
Yeah, sure. Well, hey, hypothetical listener, I'm Geoff. As Harry mentioned himself, as a child of the 80s, as am I. I was thinking about doing this podcast before, and I think that the time that we grew up in the 80s, there were a lot of movies that were coming out around that time. That was great to be a kid during, because there were some of those movies did a really good job in capturing your imagination. Today maybe some of those movies don't hold up. Lots do, But it was a really great time to be a kid, to watch movies, and I think that's where my love of movies definitely started. And today we love talking about movies, we love bitching about movies, and that's where it all started. So that's what I'm looking forward to doing.
Yeah. We met in a at a movie theater, working there, and we started bitching on the first day, and we continue to bitch about it today. So
yeah, it never ended. Yeah, it's too bad they didn't have podcasts back in 1997. We could have been bitching about this for thousands of recorded hours by now.
Oh yeah, we would have been the pioneers.
You know what we would have been? I think we lost out on a lot of money now that I'm talking about it. It's depressing. So that's pretty much me. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself there, Harry, and what brings you to what brought this brainwave to you?
Well, I'm looking for a place to vent. I have a lot of anger issues, so I need some place to go. I thought I'd take it out on you instead of my wife. I think I don't want her leaving me. So
I appreciate that. Because I can just ignore you, I suppose. Turn off the computer, go get a beer.
I'm pretty sure maybe 2 or 3 episodes in, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, you won't even know. You'll just be...
Yeah, I'll just talk.
You'll just be going.
Yeah, I'll just keep talking. It's usually how it works anyways when I'm with you anyway, so it doesn't matter.
That's true.
Yeah, so just like you, I was born in the, mid to late 70s, and pretty much my personality was formed from pop culture zeitgeist that happened in the 80s. Really, that was, to me, the golden era of movie making. Even though a lot of themes have been riffed or repeated even from earlier eras, you can even go back to the silent eras or movies from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. I still felt that a lot of original material came from the 80s. You can look at movies today and they're just being, again, riffed, or there's a lot of reboots that are happening. And they're all really a lot of these reboots are really focused on movies that started in the 80s. And I'm not saying that this podcast is just going to stick to movies in the 80s. I'm just saying that my personality and who I am and my interest in movies came from the 80s, just like yourself. I remember watching earlier memories or watching, those Saturday morning cartoons. I mean, you don't have the same level of entertainment today, but I mean, I'm not a kid today. I don't watch cartoons in the morning, but from what I know, they don't have those same glorious cartoons. I mean, where are you going to find Rambo cartoon?
Well, they do have Mike Tyson Mysteries now, so hey, anything's possible.
Yeah, but you don't have the glory of G.I. Joe and Transformers. I mean, what was that thing at the end of G.I. Joe? Like, they even give you the lesson. It's like,
yeah, the public service announcements there. Yeah, I remember those. Yeah, I mean, not to sound like an old fuddy-duddy now, say we had it so much better as kids, but there does seem to be a certain level of magic that's not there anymore, especially on those Saturday mornings. And that really was part of the culture of the 80s.
Oh yeah. And for me, I mean, like, we're talking about cartoons, but a lot of movies these days are even, like they're taking a license from those cartoons and making them into movies now, and
shitty movies.
Yeah, shitty movies, exactly. Yeah.
I don't know about you, man, but I can't wait to tackle Transformers 4 on the podcast.
Are we going to do that?
Oh, fuck. I guess we could if we really just don't give a shit about anything.
Well, yeah, maybe we should do a string, about 4 or 5, we pick the worst movies we can think of and just review it. Maybe that'll be a nice slice of heaven right there.
Yeah, I suppose, let's give it a try. What the hell?
Yeah. Well, I think we agreed on the first one we want to tackle, but we'll talk about that at the end. So I just have a question for you, since we're talking about movies and this podcast to be about movies. What's your first movie going experience? Whether it's an actual movie you watched on TV, or if it was what movie you actually went to see in the theater with your family or by yourself or with friends. You want to enlighten us?
Sure. I have some spotty memories early on. I remember I kind of have 2 memories that I go back to. One was a double feature of The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. That was that would have been in '83 when Return of the Jedi came out, obviously, and that's a big one for me for sure, as it would be for any kid that age, right, when they came out. But I only remember it, I think, because it was a double feature. The other memory I have is going to Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it must have been a re-release or something, because I would have been, I was around when it came out, but I would have been too young to remember. But Raiders of the Lost Ark, I think, is probably the influential one, because I went to it with my dad, and my dad is the kind of guy who, he loves movies, but, he grown up in an era where, when you watched a movie, you saw it one time, because you didn't have home video, and unless it came back into the theater, that was it. You didn't see it. So, and he's also the kind of guy who, there's lots of movies to watch, so if he's going to go and watch a movie a second time, it had better be the best movie. And that was the first movie that he ever saw in the movie theater more than one time. So he made sure that, when it was out again, that's a movie that I went to at a young age. And let me tell you, when you're 4 or 5 years old and you see a dude's face melting on the screen, it's got a pretty big impact on a young guy like that. So those are the ones.
Oh yeah, no. It's funny how you talked about the double feature, because now everyone's going to know that how many years older I am compared to you. My first movie-going experience was a double feature of Star Wars and then Empire, instead of you having Empire and Return. My dad had no idea what Star Wars was. I remember clearly when I was like, again, your age, around 4 or 5, sitting on kitchen table, and we had at that time a small black and white TV, and I saw a commercial for Empire Strikes Back. I didn't know what the hell it was at the time, and I just remember seeing those those snow walkers. I think, what are they, AT-ATs, and they're firing the lasers from the head, and I see these laser swords, which are lightsabers, and I said, turn to my dad. I go, Dad, I want to see, and he goes, okay, we'll go, and we did. I don't know if it was opening weekend, but it might have been, because we did do a double feature, and I was watching Star Wars, and I was confused when it ended, because I didn't see those snow walkers. I was saying, where's the snow? And we actually got up and left. And in the aisle, as I was going up, I was saying, well, what about the snow? I didn't see what I came to see, even though I loved what I was watching. And some other theater patron, thank God, told my dad, this is a double feature. You better sit back down. So
basically that random stranger saved your movie-going life and possibly your relationship with your father by not screwing you out of The Empire Strikes Back there.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But my dad screwed me over many, many other times. So we can get into that. He didn't let me watch certain movies. We would start watching a movie, and then he'd just pull it from me. Was trying to protect me. I remember he wouldn't let me finish watching Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom on VHS when we rented it, and I regretted that. Now that's I love that movie, even though it is violent for a kid. The PG-13 rating and all that stuff. There are violent images. I can't remember how old I was at the time, 8 or 9 maybe. But anyways, yeah. I mean, as a parent, I'm a parent now, so I understand. But at the time, I did not. So, but yeah, he screwed me over a few other times. But I do have him to thank for that experience. I mean, that's just, imagine a kid watching those movies. That's your first thing you ever really see. Except, I just watched to hear cartoons here and there. I think the 60s Spider-Man was really all I really was exposed to before Star Wars, and that just blew my mind. Like, I'm sure it did everybody else. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, the visual assault on, like you say, if you're used to watching the 60s Spider-Man, and then all of a sudden you've got lightsabers and AT-AT walkers, all that kind of crazy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not dissing 60s Spider-Man. That shit's still, that's still the shit.
Yeah, but we were too young to do enough drugs to enjoy it, probably for what it was meant for at the time. So.
I was hopped up on sugar and Coke, so.
Yeah, that's as bad. That's just as bad. So how does after that, what was your dad's opinion of Star Wars after?
Honestly, I don't remember. And the funny thing is I remember clearly when Return of the Jedi came out, he didn't even watch it in the movies with me. He dropped me and another friend off from school at a movie theater and picked us up. So, but I mean, I remember watching it with him when we had it on VHS. Much later. He enjoys it. My dad's from another country, so his interests are other movies from his culture, but his favorite North American movies are James Bond. When he came to Canada, that was the first thing he saw. I think it was Thunderball. So anything with Sean Connery he loves, or just James Bond in general. So that's his taste.
Right on.
Yeah. So I just have a few questions for you. Then we can move on. So, just after all the movies you've seen, and I know both of us have seen quite a many, what can you say is your favorite movie, and what is you think personally is the best movie you've ever seen? So there's obviously a difference.
Yeah, of course, there's definitely a difference. As far as my favorite movie, and it's ranked up and down over the years, but every time I come back to it, it gets slotted back into the number one for me, and I just revisited.
Can I guess?
Yeah, you can guess. I'm sure you know the answer, but go ahead.
Well, okay. Well, I mean, you may have already touched on Raiders, but I'm going to guess it's not that. I'm going to guess it's Ghostbusters.
That's a really good guess, but wrong.
Okay.
Great movie, and Ghostbusters is my top 5 usually, for sure. Great movie. But my favorite movie is, and I kind of feel like a jerk to say this, but my favorite movie is Terminator 2: Judgment Day, with Arnold Schwarzenegger, of course. And I saw that when I would have been around 12, 13 years old. And I mean, I loved it then, obviously, but now as an adult, and I come back to it, and it still has everything that I loved about it originally. I think it's a great example of a movie that uses effects extremely well. They look cool, but they help tell the story really well. Lots of great action set pieces that still hold up today.
Man, the effects are still better than. Did you see Genesis?
No, I didn't see Genesis.
So, I think the effects in D2 are better than the effects in Genesis, to be honest with you.
You know what, and the part of that is probably, and I haven't seen Genesis yet, but I think part of that might come back to, you look at Terminator 2, and they use the effects to kind of enhance the story, and you had actors interacting with the effects, as opposed to, a movie like Genesis and lots of movies now where like everything you're looking at is an effect in a computer and there's no realism to it. So part of what makes a good effect is how it integrates with the real world, right? You can buy it. It makes it more photorealistic. So I think that was a big win with Terminator. I think it was the first movie to really do that on a large scale. And, good performance from Arnold Schwarzenegger, I would argue. Just that sort of monotone, robotic performance, obviously, but the nuance there, I still find, moving towards the end of the film. Just overall, it just.
So, did you cry when he said, gave the thumb up, or says, "Now I know why you cry"? It's like that's the performance.
No, but you're forgetting it, but it's something I could never do. That's it gets me every time, man. It gets me every time.
Really?
You know what? If it doesn't get you every time, you're not a human being.
I think honestly, and this is not I love Arnie. He's fun to watch. It's a great. Every movie he's in is he has this energy and presence that everybody just loves. I mean, that's why he was so successful, and you could argue now he's not successful anymore, but he's still a draw. But I mean, the original Terminator. I mean, we're not going to get into it today. We can do it at some other time. But I still think that's his better performance because I was scared shitless of him when I was a kid. That was perfect. That's just my opinion. T2
a great movie too, and I'm not going to argue with that. And, obviously we don't need to get too much into the intricacies of the two. I guess we could do a Terminator throwdown. Maybe we can find some asshole who thinks Terminator Salvation's the best one.
Yeah, just throw him under the bus.
But to get back to your question, so that's my favorite. What's the best movie that I've ever seen? That's a really difficult question. I'll give you two that kind of popped into my mind, and both are great movies that I enjoy watching. I mean, I've watched movies that I recognize as being really good that I don't particularly enjoy watching. An example of that comes to mind is Saving Private Ryan, which I think you're a fan of.
Yeah, I love that movie. Yeah,
definitely a great movie. I'd say, right up there with a lot of the great war movies. It is not a movie I enjoy sitting through at all, but it is a good one. But a couple movies that I do enjoy that are great, I think that are up there with some of the best that I've seen would be Apocalypse Now and Chinatown.
No, I knew you were going to say that.
What's Chinatown or Apocalypse Now?
Yeah, I no. I love Apocalypse Now. I'm not the biggest fan of Chinatown. I think it's a bit overrated, but that's just me. Maybe that's a good one we can dive into some other time. We can throw down on that movie.
Yeah, I think we need and I think it's obscure enough. It's not too obscure, but I think it fits into what we're doing here. So we'll pencil Chinatown in for a future episode.
Yeah, no, that'll be good.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll tell you mine. I can, just for favorite movies, I can list them all. I can give you my top 5 right away. Okay, so.
All right, let's hear the top 5, man.
Okay. How about you guess what's my top 5? You know me well enough. You tell me what you think my top 5 is.
All right.
In any particular order. Just give me the 5 best.
Okay, so I'm going to go with Empire Strikes Back. I'm going to go with maybe First Blood. I'm going to go with, do I want to say Rocky? I wonder if Rocky 5 is up there, because I know I've heard that story from you a few times, so I'm going to go with this.
Okay. Okay, if you think Rocky 5 is one of my favorites, this podcast might be over already. So, because we're not going to have anybody listening to that ever again. So, anyways, it's a good guess. I can tell you about Rocky 5 specifically because you might be.
Why don't you share the Rocky 5 story for our listeners?
Okay, so no, Rocky 5 I enjoyed. It's actually one of my more surprisingly favorite movie theater going experiences. And maybe listeners think I'm from dumb hick town. Maybe we are. I'm not going to mention where we're from, but we are still a big city. But when I went to see that, and went to see it with a friend of mine who you know, but I won't mention his name. When we went, have you seen Rocky 5?
I don't know that I've ever had the pleasure.
Okay, well, I mean, I think it's underrated, but it's definitely not the best Rocky movie. But at the end, it's a street fight. Normally, he's actually boxing in a ring. As you know, he's a boxer, an actual fight. But here, it's just a street brawl. And when that brawl was happening, everybody in the theater was energized. And people were standing up and shadow boxing during this thing. I'm not lying. I wasn't doing it. My friend wasn't doing it. But people all around us were doing it. I don't know if they were drunk. I don't know if they were high. But that's what was going on. And that's a memorable movie experience. When I see people actually get up. It wasn't the whole theater. And obviously the theater wasn't packed. So, but yeah, some people were getting up and actually like cheering Rocky on and shadow boxing. And it was like, I was thrown back. It was my first experience seeing people applause. Even Star Wars, I don't remember. I remember people cheering for Star Wars when, the crawl came and everything like that. But after, like, in the movie, as the movie's going on, people getting up and cheering and shadow boxing, that threw me back. I was like, what the fuck is happening? And wow. So that's the Rocky 5 story. It's nothing more than that. Yeah, but I think that's where you're getting a little bit confused, maybe.
Well, I mean, I wasn't saying that you like good movies, maybe that was a half joke that I threw in there because I remember hearing that story a few times. All right, so we'll take Rocky 5 off.
Take Rocky 5 off. It's not in my top 5. So, but what were your other picks? You said Empire Strikes Back. You said First Blood. What else? What else did you say?
Let's see here. I don't know. The list probably gets pretty long. Those are my guesses. So
okay. So I'll tell you. So yes, Empire is number 1.
Okay.
So you got that bang on. My opinion, it's my favorite movie ever made. One could argue it's the best movie ever made. I wouldn't go that far, but it's definitely up there for me, even in the best movie that's ever been made. My second favorite movie is Star Wars, like A New Hope. Then it's going to be Superman, the movie. You should have had that one.
Superman.
You should have had that one.
Yeah,
and sometimes that climbs up even higher. It gets dangerously close to number 1. Even though you don't appreciate it. I love that movie.
Okay, I got my problems with it, but let's keep going.
Okay, so then Jaws and Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Okay, yeah, I should have had all of those. Really, I should have all 5, and I should have had them all in order. But
yeah, you should have. You should have.
I should have. It's been a while since we've done this kind of thing, though, so I got to get my game. And listen, just before we go on, I don't want anybody to think that I'm not a fan of Superman the movie. I am a huge fan of Superman the movie. I prefer the director's cut. Yeah,
what, the Donner cut? Oh, what are you talking about? But that's Superman 2. That's not Superman.
Yeah, there's a director's cut of Superman 1. You got more stuff on Krypton at the start with Marlon Brando. It's great.
No, I know. But I just thought when you said director's cut, my mind jumped right to the Donner cut of Superman 2. But anyways, let's move on.
Well, which is a different thing. But no, I'm a big fan of the original Superman. It's great. Yeah, the third act falls apart for me a little bit. But again, we can hash that out another time. So.
Yep.
Okay, well, what do you think is the best one you've seen?
So that's, for me, is a quick and dirty answer. I can't decide between 2001, A Space Odyssey, which could be the best. I love that movie. I own it. I watch it quite a bit. Even though my wife is bored to tears by that movie and doesn't understand it. I'm not quite sure I fully understand it, but I appreciate every aspect of that movie. Kubrick is a genius. I don't need to defend him. Everybody loves that. Like, most people love that movie. If they're movie,
you love
movie
movies,
fans.
you love 2001.
Yeah. And then the next one it's also part of my favorite movie list, top 5, is Jaws. Just the feat of pulling that off. I would say that is near perfect for a movie.
Very well executed. I can agree with that.
Yeah. So those are I think, the 2 best movies ever made. I couldn't tell you which out of the 2 is the best. I might give the nod to 2001, but
I think you'd have to give the nod to 2001 just on the scope of the film and how, when you get a film of that scope, you're running the risk of it becoming just a total unwieldy monster, right? And it was executed so well. Jaws had different challenges, but it's a smaller film, so your scope isn't quite as large. But within that, there weren't any misses in Jaws, that's for sure.
No. Again, near perfect. What can I say? It's just amazing in all aspects. And we can maybe talk about that in the future too, but we'll see. So I guess
it might not be obscure enough, but
yeah, I think it's been talked enough to death as well, and I think both of us hacks will probably do an injustice to it if we do talk about it.
Maybe so. Yeah. We are pretty stupid.
Yeah, yeah, well, that's what we are.
All right, I got a couple of questions for you.
Yeah, shoot.
So, what about a movie that you changed your mind about over time? Over whether it's a movie that you watched maybe when you were a kid and then saw it as an adult, and you had a different opinion about it either time, or just on multiple viewings over time, you either grew to appreciate something or grew to like something and then grew to hate it.
That's great, and this is this is not a setup, folks. This is actually, I'm glad you asked this, because this is one of the movies I was going to tell you offline here as an obscure movie that we should look at, The Mosquito Coast, starring Harrison Ford. I hated that movie when I was a kid, didn't understand it. I watched it on TV last year, I believe, and I was blown away. I love it.
I've never seen it.
You never seen it? That's a movie we got to watch. We got to do that one.
All right.
I like that movie. I just grew to appreciate it a lot more. A movie that I've depreciated a little bit is Superman 2, for example. I don't think that movie holds up as well. A lot of people like that movie better than Superman the movie. That's just a quick off the top of my head that I don't appreciate that movie as much anymore, even though I love Terrence Stamp as Zod. I still love Christopher Reeve. I just think the movie the effects are bad. I just think it doesn't work. It'll be a fun one to rip apart maybe one day or do an analysis on.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't hold up as well as the first one.
No, and I love that even more when I was a kid, for obvious reasons. I had more action, but I can't I pretty much almost can't watch it fully anymore. It gets too ridiculous, and the effects just really don't hold up. I'm usually not a snob on that stuff, but it just gets worse and worse and worse every time I watch that movie.
Yeah.
And the Donner cut's even worse. I don't care what anybody says.
Well, it's an unfinished cut.
Yeah, it's an unfinished cut. So I don't need to see him reversing the word.
Yeah, I think I like parts of the director's cut as sort of a less goofy tone than the theatrical version. But no question that it's got its moments, but no question it does not have the staying power of Superman the movie.
Yeah. Wow. So then I guess I'll dive into another. We can quickly talk about this as well. Like again, we talked about our favorite movies and what the best movies are. Was there a specific movie? And I want you to throw Star Wars out the window because that's going to be everybody's influence. What movie influenced you most as a kid? Is there one outside of Raiders of the Lost Ark or a Star Wars movie that really influenced you? Like, I'd say mold your personality, or that you really maybe attached yourself to, or you had a moral code based around a character or a movie or something like that? And I guess that applies to T2. Please don't say T2 again.
Well, no, T2 would have been too... I was a teenager when I saw Terminator 2, so I was already, past a certain point. So I don't know that Terminator 2 influenced my personality or development or anything like that, other than the fact that I, probably took a few beatings in junior high because I wore a Terminator 2 shirt like every single day at school. But
did I have that same shirt as you did, and you pointed it out?
Shit, I don't know, man. I think so. And it's like Arnie's face, right?
Yeah, it's just like from the poster. He's sitting on the motorcycle, right?
No, not that one. That's the classic one. The one I had, it's just his face, and half is like the cyborg, and the other half is Arnie, and like his eyes red or whatever. It's not the classic, him on the motorcycle picture. That's the poster.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, but I'd say influence in childhood as opposed to personality is probably Ghostbusters, because and I think that my parents will agree and not be happy about, because of Bill Murray being such a sarcastic motherfucker in that movie. I don't know where else I could have gotten my sense of humor other than that film. So that was a pretty big influence on me. Other than that, Back to the Future was probably another really big influence just on my development.
How so?
And personality. Well, when I said before about movies that really capture your imagination, again, I come from a family that loves movies, or maybe more than just movies, but a family that really loves storytelling. And whether that's books or TV, movies, it's just been a really important part of my whole life, because for my family that was really important. And when I talked about a film that really captured my imagination, all the movies through the 80s did that, but that was the one that probably did it the most. And I think the reason why is because I remember as a 6-year-old kid in 1985 having watched this movie and trying to piece together logically how the time travel worked. Like, he goes back in time and he's got the photo that slowly dissolving, and he sets into motion these events, and then going back to the future when he watches the scene in the mall parking lot where he's watching himself and Doc get get run down by the Libyan terrorists. And I remember, like, I didn't.
The Libyans.
The Libyans. Great scene. If you don't mind, the generic racist caricature of terrorists, which you just can't do anymore.
Yeah, my sister always points that out, that they're not even speaking in that language. It's just something else. It's gibberish. It's like, abba-dabba-dabba-dabba-dabba. It's like...
Exactly, yeah. The guy with the RPG and the guy coming out of the hood of that Volkswagen van or whatever is crazy. But trying to figure out how that was supposed to work and talking it out with my family, I think that shaped, because that is now... I like to use logic and reason just to problem solve, to get through day-to-day life, get through school. And I think that the seeds of that were planted back then, and trying to break down, what do I see? I see a problem here that doesn't make sense to me, so how can I figure this out?
No, I understand. For me, I guess a lot of these concepts were, dealt with a little bit more for me watching Star Trek. But I understand where you're coming from completely. That is, it can be mind-blowing. I don't know when you got into Star Trek, because I know you do love Star Trek. Hope I'm not embarrassing you by saying that. I'm proud to love Star Trek.
Yeah, a couple of guys geeking out over obscure movies. Don't mention that I'm a Star Trek fan. Yeah, that's just not going to work.
That's true.
Are you kidding? Come on.
Yeah.
No, actually, Star Trek was an early influence, too, because my mom was a big fan of the original series, so, I watched tons of reruns in the early 80s before, and watched all the movies and stuff, because my mom was a huge fan.
Oh, yeah, like when I was talking earlier about, how the Saturday morning cartoons were, part of the early 80s childhood experience, when at noon, when those cartoons pretty much ended, bam, my dad would come home from groceries, and he'd make us some kind of lunch, a sandwich, or even stop at McDonald's and get us something even on the way. These are the memories I have. But at noon, Star Trek came on, and we all watched it as a family, and those are heavy memories for me as a kid. So always loved it, still love it. We'll always appreciate it. But I mean, that was a big influence for me as well, Star Trek. I can tell you, I mean, aside from the obvious answer, Star Wars, because you look at a character like Luke, and he's mythological character, the classic Joseph Campbell, character arc, maturity. You latch on to that, and everybody did. By the way, segue, I don't know why people love Han Solo more than Luke Skywalker. I understand he's cool, but it's not his story. That doesn't make any sense to me. But anyways, movie that you even guessed as one of my favorite movies, First Blood, did influence me quite a bit as a child. As a minority growing up in a white neighborhood, I was obviously picked on quite substantially, and had a hard time fitting in. And when I watched First Blood, I obviously immediately latched onto the character of Rambo. Later on, you just loved the senseless violence, but and the ridiculous situations he got into. But for me, seeing how he was bullied and picked on and not understood, that was a character that I latched onto quite quickly. And that's going on later. I mean, even now, First Blood is just an amazing movie on its own. It has nothing to do with the fact that he's bullied. I mean, even though that's part of the story, and how their Vietnam vets returning were, abused and criticized and, called all sorts of names and disrespected. But that's, as a kid who'd never fit in and was kind of a loner, even though I had a couple of friends, I felt like a loner. That movie really meant a lot to me as a kid. So that influenced me. It kind of made me a little stronger emotionally. Things can turn out okay, even though it really doesn't turn out okay for him. It's at the end he goes to prison. It's like, that's not really what I am talking about. But at least he, found, I guess, a little bit of peace, inner strength, to just kind of stand up. I'm not saying he's standing up and shoot some police officers or anything like that. I'm just saying finding that inner strength and inner peace, and resolving some of the conflicts on your own the right way, not the wrong way. And that's kind of the message I took from that. And that's one of the reasons as a child I love that movie quite a bit. So that's a movie that
interesting. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So then I guess the last question I have for you is just maybe, is there a particular genre you kind of avoid, or are you kind of open to anything? I mean, I guess that might even relate to this podcast. Is there going to be a certain genre you're going to say, I don't even want to touch that with a 10-foot pole?
I don't think it's fair to say that there's a genre that I want to stay away from. I mean, I'm not a big rom-com fan, but that's got nothing to do with the genre. It's got more to do with just, certain movies are shit that tend to fall into that genre because it's...
certain? Are we talking about 99% or 50%?
It is what it is, right? I mean, you only have so much room to move within that particular genre. At least it seems to, because the movies all follow the same tropes, the same structure. Nobody's really doing anything interesting there, right? Now, I'm not saying that's not the genre's fault. Maybe it's the fault of the filmmakers and the movie studios that are making those types of movies. But I'm not a fan of that generally. I'm not a big horror fan. I know you definitely like the horror movies. It's not a big fit for me genre-wise. But that being said, there are horror movies that I do like.
Actually, I'm curious because I know on Halloween you've come over to my house. We've watched a couple of really bad ones. Maybe we can get into those too. But is there any horror movie that you do like? Legitimate horror. Like, I'm not talking about something like Ghostbusters, which is a comedy. I'm talking about legitimate horror.
Yeah. We watched, speaking of what you just referenced there, we watched The Cabin in the Woods. Was that last year or the year before?
Last year, yeah. You enjoyed that one?
Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Again, I don't know if that's a true horror. You could say it's a horror movie, but my God, it's more.
It's a bit of a stand-up of a horror.
It's a little bit more satirical, in my opinion.
It is. Yeah, it is. The original Nightmare on Elm Street is a movie I like quite a bit. And past that, I mean, I know Alien is sci-fi, but Alien's got to be it's horror sci-fi, and I really enjoy. I mean, shit, it's Alien, right?
I'd tell you right now that's probably I'd classify that as horror. It's probably that or Jaws. Again, Jaws, is that a horror? Is it a thriller?
Somewhere in between, I guess.
It's somewhere in between. So obviously, those are the two best picks.
Yeah.
Or you could talk about The Exorcist or The Shining and movies like that. They're all good. I grew up more on the slasher side, more for the sense of just getting a look at some TNA. Essentially, that's pretty much the only access I had to that stuff. So.
Yeah, that's true.
It draws a lot of boys to it. Oh yeah.
Yeah. If you don't mind them splattered in blood, I suppose that's an odd thing that became a thing. The slasher TNA type of movie. There's some odd psychology at play there, but I guess we don't need to get to that.
No.
What's your sorry? What were you going to say?
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, absent of, your top 5 favorites or the movies that had the influences on you, what's like your go-to film? It's a quiet night. You got a bag of chips and a beer, and you just want to watch something that it's your go-to.
Oh.
You don't have to dig into anything too deep or too heavy. And you sit there, it's like, that was awesome.
Honestly, you know what? Now there's no go-to anymore. Obviously now in the age we live in today, TV now is it's a bit more in depth. You have a lot more continuing story arcs that go in there, or even I go back and watch comedies. I find myself latching onto TV now more than movies if I just want to sit back and have a laugh or really get into something. So it's a little bit more difficult for me to say what's my go-to movie. Even the top 5, I've watched them so many times. It's hard for me to just throw them in. It really is a struggle if I sit there and actually look. I waste more time looking for a movie to pop in than I do just saying, here's my go-to, I'm lazy, I want to throw something in. I can't do that anymore. It used to be Star Wars when I was a kid. Star Wars, or Indiana Jones or Superman or Rambo or Terminator or Predator and so on and so on. I can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
There's no go-to for me.
All right.
Yeah, unfortunately. I wish there was.
Well, no, I mean, I kind of have the same thing. You get diminishing returns. I mean, if you're going to watch one of the favorites, it's like you need a reason now. It's almost like special occasion or somebody hasn't seen it before or whatever, right? Yeah, it's not just, it's Wednesday night, nothing to do, I'm going to pop in Apocalypse Now. You don't do that kind of stuff. No.
Even I used to even throw in, old favorites in the background anymore. I can't even do that anymore.
Yeah, I do that occasionally, but I do that less and less now. It's more TV.
Yeah, it's more TV. Definitely. Yeah, maybe we can even talk about that in a future podcast. It's just the transition from what's popular now. Like, more people want to watch good TV than hit the theaters, right? So that's definitely something that the entertainment industry is dealing with these days. Yeah.
Definitely something to talk about in the future.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I guess that kind of takes care of introducing ourselves. So I get you still up for talking about something today?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so just so we can wing it, since we have nothing really prepared, before we start our first movie review, obviously we'll talk about certain event movies. We've talked about some of our favorite movies already today, so I guess if you don't mind, we can hit the big event movie of the year, which will come up in mid-December, Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Obviously, we won't talk about any spoilers here. I do know a few spoilers, if they are spoilers, but we won't mention anything here in terms of spoilers, except for maybe what we've seen already that's been officially released. I guess I just wanted to ask you, are you excited for it? Are you anticipating? Are you extremely optimistic, cautiously optimistic, or are you pessimistic? Where do you fall?
Well, I'll say this. I was excited and cautiously optimistic at first when, I remember when the announcement came out that Disney had bought Lucasfilm and then Star Wars Episode 7 was announced within 30 seconds. You're the one who informed me of that when it first happened a couple years ago.
I was on the bus and literally the internet broke.
Yeah.
It broke, and I was just listening to streaming some music, and it just stopped. I tried to go online. I could not get back on. My bus ride is an hour and a half. So, I waited 45 minutes to get back online. And when I did, I usually I'll hit a news site. I'll say, what the fuck happened? Usually news doesn't do that. So after quickly looking at the news, then I go to an entertainment site, and then there it was. Boom, right there. Yeah. Lucas sold it to Disney.
It was a pretty crazy announcement. And, once I got my eyes on the first footage, the first teaser, and then the second teaser, I'm letting go of all of my cynicism, and I'm enjoying it. I'm super pumped, and you know what? If it lets me down, I'll deal with that in December. But from now till then, it's nice to kind of feel like a kid again with something like this big coming.
Do you know anything about the movie?
I don't have any plot details. I'm good about staying away from that stuff. I only know the real mainstream top level stuff that's come out. I've watched both trailers, obviously. I've seen all of the official photos that have been released, so I know the characters. I don't know the characters' names, the new characters. I've read them, and but I don't know any of the speculation or plot analyses or anything like that. So just the top level official release stuff that's right on the surface is everything that I'm aware of.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I told always say you're going to go spoiler free. This will be the fourth Star Wars movie that you said you're going to go spoiler free for, and I'm assuming you're not you're falling off the wagon, I guess.
Oh yeah, long ago. But I'm now cut off. I don't go searching for anything more. Once the second trailer hit, I stopped.
Yeah, but have you since watched the second trailer?
Yeah, I did. I told you I wouldn't, and I held out for about 3 weeks, but I caved.
It's a pretty good trailer, you gotta admit.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's a good trailer. I'm glad I still prefer the prequel trailers. I thought they were
Those were both great trailers.
like they're amazing trailers. I'm glad this trailer isn't giving too much away yet. I won't tell you where I think certain scenes fall in the movie based on what I know. To me, it seems a little obvious, but from what I know, but I won't get into that. I'm glad he's playing his mystery box, J.J. Abrams. I actually hope they don't even release another trailer. I know they will, because I think he already announced he'll release something in the fall sometime, but based on what he said at Comic-Con, but I won't. I'm going to do my best to stay away from that, because I do want to maintain some element of surprise. I know some things. I don't know all the things. What I've heard, if it's true, I'm cautiously optimistic. There are certain things I've heard that I do not anticipate that I'll like, but it's all execution, and I need context, and so it's hard. I don't want to judge a book by its cover, right? So we'll see. I am glad that he's going on the more practical side of things. I'm glad I haven't seen a lens flare yet. I believe I haven't seen one, but
no, there are lens flares. But what I read, and I don't even know where I came across, but I read like a detailed scrub of the second teaser, and just sort of, and the objective of that was just to sort of analyze the visual style to see if it was consistent with the 6 movies that have come before, and with JJ's style, right? And obviously famous for the lens flare, and so that was brought up in the analysis, and it was that there is lens flare in the second teaser, in particular in the scene where there's in the hangar where the TIE fighter is blowing up all of the stormtroopers. There's lens flare in there that's consistent with the style of the other 6 movies, where you would in fact see that optical effect.
Oh, that's good.
So,
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and bitch. I'd be one of the millions on the internet bitching about JJ's lens flares. I mean,
yeah, it's a small issue.
Small issue. I know he's going to cut it back based on everything we've seen, and I'm glad. What I really like is the return of the practical effects. You know, Muppetry, the costumes, real sets, real locations, just like the original trilogy. They obviously want to go for that feel. I completely agree. It was one of the problems with the prequels, even though I like elements of the prequels. I don't think they're utter failures like 99% of the internet does. But they aren't perfect movies either. A lot of problems with them. In the end, it's going to come down to story. I'm one of those guys that can forgive a lot of things. I'm not a stickler on bad effect movies or too much CGI, as long as the movie is good. If the story makes sense and it's logical. The issue I find, I'm going to guess here, and again, this is not based on what I know, and again, we're only going to be one movie in after December. It is going to be a trilogy, so we'll see what happens. It's really about balancing out the cast, the original 3, versus these new guys. Obviously, the new, younger generation of actors and characters here, it's going to be their story mainly. But when you bring those original 3 characters back, Luke, Han, and Leia, how are you going to win? Is there that right balance that you're going to find, or JJ and Lawrence Kasdan and Kathleen Kennedy, did they find that balance to please everybody? And obviously you're not going to make a movie that's going to please everybody. But this is Star Wars. This isn't just your run-of-the-mill popcorn movie, summer popcorn movie that's coming out. This is the movie. And I don't know. I still think it's going to divide the fan base. That's my prediction. I think that the critics are going to love it, and they're going to love it on purpose just to give the finger to George Lucas. They'll always give the finger to George. Poor George can't win. He's been unfairly treated, whether it's partially deserved or not. But I think critics will... This will probably end up being rated very high on Metacritic and sites like Rotten Tomatoes, and just your average newspaper journalist or movie critic will love it, just because that'll be the thing to do. You know, JJ's, the flavor of the month. Kathleen Kennedy's very respected in the industry. It's a Disney movie now, so you got Bob Iger's influence. You're going to find that the critics are going to love it. I think the fans will love it at first, but I think over the test of time, just like with Phantom Menace, I think more people like that movie now than they initially did, even though it's still critically panned. I think that it's going to divide the fan base, this trilogy. I think especially this one, too. That's just my feeling. What do you think?
Well, I think there's definitely some interesting points that you raised there. The balance between the old cast and the new. And sure, it's really exciting to think that we're going to see those characters again. And that's certainly a big draw for a lot of us that that remember the original trilogy when it was first around and not through the re-releases and whatnot. So it's exciting to think that wow, we're actually going to see these characters again. But you're right. The torch needs to be passed, and how's that going to look? So what that means, and I'm the same as you. If the story's good, I don't care too much about the talk about practical effects versus CG. I mean, yeah, I love the look of the practical effects, and I definitely think that it adds a certain realism to it. But if the story's good, who cares? If the story's good and the performances are good, then it's going to work, regardless of if they go practical effects or CG. I think that the prequels look great, aside from the only thing I really don't like are all the digital sets that they used, especially.
And it's dated. It's already dated.
Yeah, it's already dated. Like the first one was a little bit more practical when it came to location and sets.
Yep.
But 2 and 3, the digital sets are, they're dated and they really do pull you out. But that, in my opinion, you look at the prequels as the least of their problems.
Yeah, of course.
If the story works and the dialogue's well written and the new guys, the new cast, they have good chemistry, then I think it's going to work. Is it going to divide the fan base? Yeah, maybe. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, you could say that.
As long as I like it, I'm happy. And I think that, like I say, I love the style of what I've seen. I like the look. I like the look of the new cast members, and I'm excited, man. Maybe I'll be hugely disappointed on December 18th or whatever, but I got a good feeling about this.
Not a bad feeling about this. That's interesting. Okay. Okay. Did you do that on purpose or what?
I was winging it, but I did do it on purpose. But it's not like I wrote it down in advance.
No, I'm still looking forward to it. Obviously I'm going to be there opening night. My worry is a little bit on Lawrence Kasdan still pulling it off with JJ. It's interesting that they jettisoned a lot of George's ideas. I still think, I heard rumors, and this is not going to be really spoilers about the movie, but I think they jettisoned the idea, probably wisely so. George wanted to make the heroes a little younger. I'm glad that they made them older. Yeah. I think in the end, the success of this movie will be how well these new 3 heroes how well are they going to act, and are they going to have any chemistry? I really don't have a lot of faith that JJ is the right director to bring out those performances. I think he's a bit overrated as a director so far from what I've seen. Aside from The Lost Pilot, I haven't even liked a movie that he's directed. I found elements of movies that he's directed very well done, and he sure is. He's technically sound. It's the performances that I'm a bit worried about. One can go back and argue, Super 8, he directed those kids. You know what? It was an E.T. ripoff.
Yeah, so, it was meant to be.
I know it's meant to be an homage.
I'm kind of ho-hum on Super 8 too. I like parts of it, but you're right. Who cares about those kids? It's luck of the draw when you're taking young kids into a movie.
Oh yeah, of course. I'm sure even Spielberg got lucky directing, Drew Barrymore.
Oh yeah.
She was probably ahead of her time at that age, anyways. She probably just got lucky, but that's part of the casting process too, right? So you have to have the right casting to begin with.
But I am glad they went older. I agree with you there. once all is said and done, I'd love to read or know just what George's original ideas were and how I want to know how far along he got in that process, how well formulated it was.
Yeah, I know, and nobody knows. It'll be interesting to see if that ever comes out in maybe a making of book or something like that. I doubt they're gonna want to reveal too much. It'll obviously depend how well the movies are critically accepted. Then they'll probably volunteer that information. But for me, still, George is still the heart of Star Wars, and his ideas, his core ideas, are still what makes the original trilogy and the elements, like the core elements of the prequel trilogy, work. Where the prequel trilogy does work, which are a few areas it does, not every area. But it's still his ideas that I like. He just needed somebody, like everybody says, he needed a no man, someone to bounce ideas back at him saying, no, this isn't going to work. And that was Lawrence Kasdan. Now, Lawrence Kasdan of the 80s is a different, this Lawrence Kasdan of today is a different Lawrence Kasdan compared to the 80s. So I'm a little worried there too. You keep hearing him talk at Comic-Con, oh yeah, I know how these characters talk. But I mean, you know what? He's written garbage shit since the mid-'80s. So I'm a bit worried. I think he's a bit overrated. I think the fans have just made him the hero of the original trilogy. Oh yeah, he wrote Raiders, he wrote Empire, he wrote Return of the Jedi. Oh, he did The Big Chill, he did Body Heat. But you know what? If you did you ever read that transcript I sent you from Raiders of the Lost Ark? That storyboard written transcript where it was him, Spielberg, and Lucas in a room bouncing ideas on what Raiders of the Lost Ark is going to be and what the story beats are, what the dialogue is going to be. Did you ever read that? I remember sending that to you a long time ago.
Yeah, maybe, but I don't recall.
So I'm going to tell you right now, the most sane man in that room was George Lucas. Yeah. Spielberg had wacky ideas. He was a loon, like seriously. The jumping out of the plane, swinging monkeys, the roller coaster ride from Temple of Doom, all those eating monkey brains, all those kind of things he wanted to even put back into Raiders of the Lost Ark. He had some of those ideas that were really wacky, and same thing with Lawrence Kasdan. It was George that was the one who was saying, no, we got to keep it gritty, we got to keep it real. I don't want to do that. That's a bad idea. So I find it very curious that it was George who really molded Raiders of the Lost Ark personally, at least the story, more than Kasdan and Spielberg. And George may have lost himself as he's built his Lucasfilm empire, and that's definitely his downfall. Worrying more about technology, just like probably James Cameron's going to be the next George Lucas, in my opinion, with this dumbass Avatar films. Sorry to those who like Avatar. It was a dumb movie.
Yeah, screw him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's just in that world now of technology. Yeah, so it's the same thing. Yeah. So I'm a bit worried that is Kasdan really going to find that balance again? Is he going to, or was it more George than Kasdan even back then? And George is a nice and humble guy. He's not going to go out and say, no, it was me. I don't see George like that.
No.
So
you know what? It's hard to say. And when you look at the writing process in Hollywood, the names that are on the scripts, sometimes they have less input in the actual writing process. There's script doctors that come in, people who come in to polish the dialogue, people who don't get credits on any of this stuff. Stuff that happens on the set that's rewritten. I mean, is Kasdan supposed to be the savior here? Well, I don't know. Great. So he worked on, some movies 30 years ago. Good for him. Yeah, I'm the same with you. I don't have a lot of faith that just because he's on it, it's going to be good and classic. But I guess we'll have to see. Who knows? Maybe they can capture some of that lightning again.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult.
It's going to be difficult.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. My worry again, when I go back down to J.J. Abrams and not trusting him, is he just going to riff on what has come before? That seems to be a lot of his style. He's cleverly hid behind his patsies, Lindelof and Orca or Orchie or whatever his name is, Orsi. He's hidden behind those guys for the stuff he's done on other projects. But I still think he had creative control of every single major decision, so including the story. So everything goes through him. So I'm a bit worried he's going to say, well, is he going to homage? Is he going to riff too much? I mean, I'm not talking about like lines like, oh, I got a bad feeling about this and may the force be with you. Is he going to take direct scenes and direct story beats from the original movies and just have it repeat here again?
Well, I think that he will take on some of those story beats. I think that that's likely to happen. But that being said, isn't that kind of how it's structured anyway?
Yes, and that's a fair point. I mean, I'm here trying to defend George, but I mean, George did the same thing with the prequels. There was a lot of story beats that were repetitive, and he even admitted it's like a poem. It rhymes.
Yeah, that is how he described it. Yeah,
certain things will repeat. It's just part of the story and part of the destiny of these characters. But I think it's time now to move past that, because I don't want to see the same story beats play out again and again and again, because that's where my concern comes from. I'd rather them go way in the past or way in the future and do a brand new thing. I like that they're doing these side movies, anthology movies they're talking about, except for the stupid Han Solo one that they announced. I think that's a mistake.
That's so stupid.
It's just ridiculous. Again, I don't know why that character is so popular, but whatever. Hopefully that'll be the end. Hopefully that'll be the end of it, and everyone will say, you know what, this guy really wasn't interesting to begin with. So I'm hoping that actually that movie bombs, because I don't want to see that movie.
But you will.
I'll watch it on Netflix. That's the one Star Wars. No, I'm not seeing that in the theater, man. I'm telling you that right now. I have no interest watching a young Han Solo movie.
You know what? I actually have no interest in watching a young Han Solo movie either. That's the dumbest idea they've had so far.
Yeah, but Rogue One is going to is sweet. Sounds sweet.
I dig that idea.
Yeah, I'm there. So, yeah.
So let me ask you this. You're walking out of the new Star Wars movie, Episode 7, and it's awesome. You're coming out of there and you're going, that was awesome. What makes it a success? Again,
I'm going to be... You're playing a hypothetical, because I'm pretty much now... After Phantom Menace, I came out of Attack of the Clones thinking that was awesome, immediately wanting to enjoy it on purpose. And that was a piece of shit movie in the end. Like, right. As a test of time, that's the worst Star Wars movie in my opinion. It's absolute garbage. I mean, aside from the score and maybe couple action scenes, there really isn't much to take away from that movie. And then with Revenge of the Sith, I came out very reserved. I don't know if were you there at that showing with me?
Yes.
I was very reserved, and you were I remember you saying, "Oh yeah, you're going to hate it anyways." I remember you saying something along those lines, because I wasn't jumping for joy.
Yes.
I wasn't jumping for joy, and I wasn't mad or upset. I was just kind of because I wanted to kind of judge it over time, and I'm going to be like that now with this one. I don't think I'm going to be coming out saying it's awesome. Again, because I know a couple things, I'm already a little cautiously optimistic. So I might come out saying, "Oh, this is better than I thought," or it's about the same where I think it's going to be. Right? Again, it's going to be execution, but I'm not going to be saying it's fucking the best thing I've ever seen. I can tell you that right now.
Well, let's say, forget about that, but objectively speaking, what makes it a success? I'm not talking like a financial success, but what makes this one a success? What makes it work?
See, this movie is going to be special in the sense that if it's a normal movie, I could say acting, directing, effects, does it look real, does the story work? Those things still apply. Is the music good? I have absolute confidence in John Williams. If there's one thing I know this movie's going to kick ass in, it's going to be the score.
Oh yeah, that'll sound great.
Right? So I mean, that's the one confidence, one piece of confidence I have, no matter what. I know that's going to work. No matter what. I just think the balance of the original trilogy characters. I'm honestly, I'm there for them. You announce them, I'm there for them now. If you don't announce them, I have no expectations. Now I have expectations. And that's my fault. But I can't let that go. I shouldn't have those expectations. You understand what I mean?
Yeah,
But the fact that you're bringing these legendary characters, this is the big three. There's no other big three in any other movies.
No, this is it.
This is it. When it comes to pop culture, talking about the franchise, the characters, except for Darth Vader himself, you got these three characters. And you're bringing them back, and it's got to work. And if it doesn't work, and it may not work in this movie because we're going to have to judge it over 3 movies.
Right.
So I can't tell you how mad or happy I'm going to be. Because I think it's an impossible task. And that's why I say it's going to divide the fan base. That's my prediction.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think it's a mistake to bring them back. I think they shouldn't even be there.
It's a big risk, that's for sure. But the fact that they are there, I mean, let's face it, the level of excitement is lower if they're not there.
Yeah, but now you understand what I mean. They're there. I have expectations now.
Yeah, but I kind of like the anticipation.
Oh, I'm anticipating it too, but I mean, I don't know. It's a very difficult question to answer. What's really going to work? I mean, what is it going to mean for me for this movie to be a success? It's going to be, are those original characters treated with respect? Because I care about them more than I do about these new characters, even if I don't even know if this is true. So it's not me knowing something, because I don't know. Are any of these new three leads the kids of these original characters? I don't know that. Even if they are, I don't give a fuck at this point.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter if they are or aren't. I think that's a non-factor for me. Yeah,
it really is a non-factor. So I mean, I think that the new characters will make or break the movies. It's really going to be their acting and their chemistry together. Can JJ pull that off? I think he has a better chance than Lucas, because Lucas isn't a character. I mean, the actor's director. I think JJ may not be the perfect actor's director either, but I think he's probably better at it than Lucas at this stage in his life.
Right now,
oh yeah, right? For sure, and I grant JJ that. It's quite obvious that that's not Lucas's forte and expertise. But it's going to come down to them, how well they're going to act together. Is their chemistry together? I have faith now in what we've seen for the practical effects, so I have complete faith that they're going to blend that well with state-of-the-art CGI. I don't think anything's really going to look fake. I think the costumes are going to be amazing. I think the score is going to be amazing. It's also going to come down to the villains, and that's where I think, how do you top Palpy and how do you top Vader? That is a challenge.
Well, it's a challenge. I agree. There's a question mark there, but you can't top them, so you can't try.
Yeah.
So I think that is going to be a real difficult piece, because, and the only thing that really worries me is you take the original trilogy and you take the prequel trilogy, and they're telling the same story, right?
Yeah. Well, they're telling one story.
Yeah. And it ends with the death of Darth Vader, right?
Yep.
So now when you're tacking these 3 on to the end, and it doesn't, and I don't know what's the connective tissue now, right? It's more of just, now it's like it's just a sequel. It's not a continuing saga.
Mm.
And I think that's an issue for it, without knowing if there is any other connective tissue. I mean, obviously, we've got the trio from the original trilogy. Obviously, they're there, but it's still, they were the characters in that story, but it wasn't really their story, right? It was Luke's story, but it was Anakin Skywalker's story.
Yeah.
And he's gone now. So whose story is it now?
Exactly. So again,
they got to do something completely different with the villains, because they can't just make new bad guys who are in the same vein as those guys, Vader and Palpatine, because that doesn't make sense. You can't top them.
Well, yeah, you can't top them. And then, like, what again, that's when you come down to it, are they going to be worthy villains? Are these just going to be hacks? Like your villain of the week? Or are these actually going to be Sith villains? Like, are they going to be masters of the dark side? Like, you know what I mean? Like, are they going to be... I hate to put quantitative terms in terms of villainy, but are they going to be as powerful as, say, Darth Vader or as Palpatine? Because before, I mean, the Jedi didn't see them for millennia.
Right.
And now all of a sudden, then you had Palpy's reign of power for 30 years, and wherever long that was. And now we're talking about, okay, now it's a 30-year gap, and we have some, those guys were defeated. Now it's 30 years later. Oh, all of a sudden we got a brand new empire. Whether it's an offshoot, it's probably an offshoot in my opinion. Some remnants of the empire formed to make this First Order thing. But the villains themselves, like the head honchos, who obviously should have force powers, and we've seen one of them with that cross lightsaber. Where do these guys come from, and how powerful are they?
Yeah, and I don't want more flunkies. I mean, one of the most disappointing moments for me in the prequels in Episode 1 was, when Darth Maul kicks it at the end. Like, well, who's this badass guy who's been tearing up the screen for the last 2 hours and now he's dead? But who are the bad guys here? He was just a flunky.
What did you want him to do? Twirl a mustache and giggle and run away?
I don't know about the giggling, but twirling a mustache. You know what I mean? Like he was just a flunky, and then followed by Christopher Lee's flunky. And
I think that was the mistake. I think that's where you drop the ball. Is Dooku? It's not Maul.
You just use the same. They just dropped they dropped continuity between the films at that point. And so if I get another flunky who's going to be dead at the end of Episode 7, and just another puppet master behind the scenes, that's going to be a disappointment for me.
I'm pretty I don't know this is a spoiler, but since we already know that Adam Driver has been cast as the villain.
Yes.
And I'm pretty confident that he's the guy with that lightsaber in the first trailer. I think
that is him, yeah.
I'm assuming he is going to live past this movie. I don't know that as a spoiler. I think they've also learned their lesson because of what you just said.
Yeah.
With Darth Maul, all the fans wanted to keep him around because he was good. I think he'll be there till the end. And again, that's what I mean. I think they're going to go back to all the original trilogy beats. Vader lasted. He was there from beginning to end. The puppet master was Palpatine, was behind the scenes from beginning to end, even though he only was seen in the last movie. When we're talking about the original 3.
Yeah.
So you're going to get something here. I am looking forward to Andy Serkis. I'm assuming he's playing that puppet master, because nobody's been announced playing that character, and we don't know who Andy Serkis is playing. I'm assuming that's him. Probably.
He's the guy doing the voiceover in the first teaser.
Yeah.
And, they released his name, but they haven't really said who he is.
Oh, yeah. What was that? Snoke?
Yeah. That's right.
Terrible name, but it is Star Wars. It's Star Wars. It's appropriate for Star Wars, but I hate the name.
Yeah, it's not great.
No. I'm hoping maybe that's a front. I'm hoping he's Darth something behind the scenes.
You know what? I would actually be happier if they weren't Sith. If it was something else, if they called themselves something else. I think I'd be happier if they just went a different direction.
Maybe, and I think that would be better. Because but then the problem is, you go down there and you say, then are they worthy villains? You still have Luke Skywalker kicking around. So, he can't take care of these guys who aren't Sith?
Well, just because they're not Sith doesn't mean they can't be badasses, right?
No. You're right. It's hard for me to, you don't want to judge too early, right? But that's where my worry comes from. The villains, you're asking me what's going to be a success. The villains are also a main part of it. The original trilogy works so well as well because Darth Vader was so iconic. So... are you going to have that here? Only time will tell, right?
Yeah, there's definitely issues to be concerned about, but all of that being said, I think it's. I know you're not a huge JJ fan. I think it's in the right hands right now, and I think there's people with respect for the source, for the material, and past that, it's just going to come down to how any movie comes down to it being if it's going to be good.
Yeah. Well, I do trust Kathleen Kennedy, so I'm hoping she is that light steering the boat in the fog, which is probably JJ's brain. So, so I think she's that lighthouse keeper. So hopefully she keeps it on track. And I haven't seen her really do anything terrible that she's been involved in.
Yeah.
So I do have faith there. I am looking forward mostly to the score. So if you ask me one element of this thing, the score is what I'm looking forward to the most.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear another John Williams Star Wars score.
Oh yeah, I'm hoping can do all three. He's getting up there in age.
I didn't know he was going to make it to this one. So
yeah. Well, I think the Force is with him, so I think he'll do it. He'll do it. I'm got my fingers crossed, but I'm hoping he'll do all three.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, well, I think this is a good point to call it for today. Unless you have anything else to add.
No, I don't. I don't think I have any final thoughts.
That's normally the case, but sorry, I had to throw one in there just for the hell of it. So
you're lucky you got first thoughts out of me today. Final thoughts. Shit.
Yeah, sounds good. So just let everyone know if we do have any listeners next, because we'll stick with our obscure movie selection reviews, retro reviews. Our first real podcast and movie review. The movie will be Weird Al Yankovic's UHF. I believe that was released in 1989. Good old classic cult movie. That'll be the first one to kick this sucker really off. And are you looking forward to it? When was the last time you seen that one?
UHF, baby. You know what? It's a movie that I come back to every now and then. Last watched it maybe a few years ago. I have already watched it in preparation for our first episode. So
oh, you have? Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll keep my thoughts to myself for now, but I think it's a hell of a first episode.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. All right, I guess that does it. I'll see you on the other side.
All right.
All right.